Hello knitters. We are ready to transfer our stitches from our 16-inch circular to our double pointed needles. Today's the day. Today's the day that we finish up those decreases and work towards finishing our hat. I checked in with Gerald a few days ago and he is also at the same stage. He is ready to go, ready to transfer over onto DPNs. So I don't know if you can see in the corner today, I've got a nice strong coffee. I always find that a good fortifying coffee is always very helpful when I'm needing to concentrate on what I'm doing. Okay, so I've got my 16-inch circular. I have followed the directions up until the point that Louise has told us that we need to switch over to our DPNs. So I've got my DPNs ready to go. I am transferring from wooden circular to wooden DPNs. It's personal preference. You can switch between wooden and metal. If you notice any change in gauge or tightness of stitches, then you may want to aim to use the same material when you're switching back and forth. I find that it really affects how I knit, going in between wood and metal. So I tend to, once I've started with a particular material for a project, I tend to stick with it. Okay, so here we go. I am going to record the whole thing. So if this takes me a while to transfer everything onto the 4 DPNs, you will see me speed up the process so that you don't have to sit through the whole thing in regular time. So you take your first DPN and you simply slide it under the tip of the first stitch that is on the left-hand needle. And we're going to count the 16 stitches that is going to belong on each DPN. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Moving along here. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And that is it for the very first DPN. Slide those stitches onto the middle of the needle, just like so. Now the next step, and this is what I'm going to do right now, so that I keep track of where the beginning of my round is, I'm going to take my locking stitch marker, and Louise says, clip your stitch marker onto the first stitch of the round. So just remember, this is where we started over here. Okay, so we're going to take our locking stitch marker, and we're going to open it up, and I'm going to just hook it around that first stitch. Now, you can do one of two things. You can either put it around the leg of that stitch there, or you can put it down on the next stitch below, because it is actually going to remain on that stitch. It is simply marking the beginning of our round. That's its purpose. So now I know where the beginning of my round is. I'm good to carry on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the stitches that are on the circular needle on the right needle. I'm going to slide those over a little bit and slide them right over so that I've got lots of looseness on those stitches as I move around the hat, transferring the other stitches onto the DPNs. Take my second DPN, and I'm going to take the next 16 stitches off and onto this needle. There's 16. Move them to the middle of the DPN. Now you can see I have half of my stitches on DPNs and half of my stitches are still on the old circular. Now you simply let those DPNs hang where they are. Take your third DPN, turn the hat around, carrying on the next 16. There we go. There's 16. That's my third DPN, stitches to the middle. Now we have our last bit of transfer work to do here, making sure that those other DPNs have the stitches still in the middle of them so they don't slide off disastrously while we're in the middle of doing our work. So as you can see, all of my stitches are in the middle of those DPNs. Watch that you don't slide them off by accident. So last, fourth DPN. Now you will have 5 in your pack. Sometimes you'll get 6. The 5th one is the one you knit with. I mean, you'll see in a minute. So just keep that 5th one to the side. If you have a 6th one in your pack, it's because they gave you an extra. Sometimes with the sock needles, they'll include an extra one because they can sometimes snap, break in half if you're very, very tense with your knitting. So try not to be tense. This is supposed to be fun. All right, last one. Here we go. Let's transfer these last ones off onto my DPN. Almost there. 2 more. These get a little bit finicky there. There we go. Last one. I am now free of the circular needle and all of my stitches are now on the 4 DPNs. As you can see, I have a little square at the top here. That's what it should look like. And I'm gonna not try to dip it in my coffee there. Let's just move that to the side. Okay, so here's where you may, at the beginning, the first time that you're using DPNs, you may find this a little bit awkward. It's best if you have, plans on becoming a sock knitter. This is really a great way to learn how to use DPNs, because when you use double pointed needles knitting socks, especially when you're first starting out, they are very tricky at the beginning, just at the beginning, and they can be a little finicky to get used to using. So doing it in the hat, the needles are a lot bigger. We also have quite a lot of knitting already established to put our needles into. So it's a great way to start this process. And now it's time to start knitting. So we take the needle, the left needle that has the beginning of our round on it. And we know that because we put that stitch marker on it. So we know that that's the beginning of the round. That's the only needle of the 4 that you're going to be holding that is attached to the hat. The other needle that you need is the empty one. This is the one that we're going to knit with. Now you can see that my 2 needle tips here, I've got my 4th needle that's got joined in the round and my 1st needle with the beginning of the round. I always find that I need to take that left-hand needle tip and I need to put it on top of the 4th needle to get that needle tip out of the way of my working yarn. So, but that is the needle that has the yarn attached to it. So, needle tip goes in. So you can see now that I have 3 needle tips in the way here. These are the only 2 that I'm working with, the one in the middle and the one on the bottom. This 4th needle tip is extraneous for now. I mean, it's not extraneous, it is actually holding those live stitches for us. But the 2 that I'm working with is this one and this one. Pick up your working yarn that is attached there, and you are simply going to knit from this stitch over into this one. So here we go. Take the working yarn, wrap it around, pull it nice and snug, and then you simply knit the stitch. That's it. Now, in order to prevent what's known as laddering or creating little holes where the DPNs are joined together, you want to make sure that that first stitch that is connecting in between the 2 DPNs is really nice and snug. And that way that's going to go a long way to preventing laddering. Now also, if you do end up with a little bit of laddering, most of the time it sort of works its way out with a bit of gentle blocking of the garment or just general wear. It will, sort of work itself out. But the more you can do at the beginning to keep that stitch nice and tight, the better. Now, because this is your very first time doing it, it will feel a little awkward. Just keep trying. Okay, so we are supposed to, let's see here, because I know that we are decreasing. So let's just check. Okay, so it's a knit two together. So there's 1, here's 2, keeping that first stitch really nice and snug up to that 4th needle. Wrap it around there. So there's our knit 2. Once again, I'm just going to give a nice little tug there to keep that snug. Here's my knit 2 together. And that's it. So I'm going to work my decreases all the way across this needle. Knit 2, knit 2 together, knit 2, knit 2 together, knit 2, last one. The last 2 stitches on this needle, they are going to be knit together. And now you've done your decreases on that needle. You turn the work around and you carry on. We are now on the 2nd needle tip. We have an empty needle now. That was our 1st needle, but now that's the empty one. That one goes in. These are the 2 working needles. This is the working yarn that's on the loose needle over here. Carry it over. Nice and tight and snug up to that needle there. Knit 2, knit 2 together, keeping it as snug as you can. Just at that beginning part. See this? This is where you want it nice and snug, right there. So this stitch connected to this stitch, because otherwise what happens is you get an extra little bit of yarn if it's not tight, and that's what creates a little bit of a gap in between. Okay, I hope that that helped. I know it looks like a lot of needles, it looks a little scary, it looks confusing, it just takes a bit of practice. You might mess up, you might make mistakes. I would really suggest that before you put in a lifeline, maybe before you do that last knit row, before you do the transferring onto the DPNs, put in a lifeline. Don't forget, if you're brand new to DPNs and you're nervous in any way, put in a lifeline right before you change. Knit that last round and then switch to your DPNs. If a needle falls out because your tension is too loose, or you are not happy with the way it's looking in between the needles, you can take those needles out, you can pull the yarn back to your lifeline, and you can carefully pick up those stitches back with a circular needle and knit that last round again and try again. That way you do not have to rip out the whole hat if should disaster strike. But my confidence is with you. I know you can do it. If you have any questions or any problems, leave me a message below on this video. And I will see you early next week where we'll finish off the hat. And then we're done. We can put it on our heads and wear it. Happy knitting, guys.